Guys, so basically in this video, what I want to do today is go through the differences between Facebook ads campaigns for a lead generation business versus an e-commerce business. And a lead generation business is basically anything defined with like high ticket services such as tradies, law firms, professional services, home improvement, basically anything that requires somebody to fill out a form or a phone call. Then somebody on the back end needs to call that lead up, qualify them, vet them to see if they're the right fit, send out a proposal, and then convert that proposal into a sale. This is much more different to like an e-commerce business whereby you have an ad campaign that sends traffic to a website, and then from that website you basically just get someone to buy it directly like that on the website. There's much more steps involved with lead generation, and because of that, you need to run your campaigns in a different structure to suit this particular need. So let's go through that together. All right, so basically what I want to do is walk through the differences between the two, the reason why they're different, and then how we would structure the campaigns accordingly. So first and foremost, what we want to do is just define the different funnels of each vertical, right? So you see here, there's like an ecom campaign versus like a lead gen campaign or service-based business campaign. And what I want to do is kind of walk through the different steps. So an ecom business is very straightforward in that you have traffic, right? And apologies for the poor drawings, but bear with me. So you got traffic that you basically, it doesn't really matter how you get the traffic, whether it's social media, it's advertising, SEO, PR campaigns, news, whatever it is, TV, radio. You need traffic. You need eyeballs to send somewhere to buy your stuff. The funnel is very straightforward for e-commerce. It's traffic to your web page and then purchase, right? So you either get people onto your website and they buy or they don't. And if they don't, then cool, you can then do complex things like remarketing and things like that. That's pretty straightforward. The reason why this is important to understand is because when you run ads on Facebook or Instagram or whatever it is, there's a direct correlation in whether your traffic converts to a purchase or not. You can basically determine how good your ads are working, right? The reason why this is important is because e-commerce is very straightforward in the sense of when you run traffic from an ad to your website, you can see a direct correlation on whether you get purchases or not. You can see your revenue going up or down, and then you can make decisions based on what is working. There's a pretty quick time to result based on the traffic that you're running and then the results that you're getting in the back end. If you send traffic to your web page and you're not getting purchases, cool, you just change the traffic source or you change the ad. That's completely fine. And then you just iterate and then you get purchases. Lead generation is a little bit different because there's a time lag factor to take into consideration. So let's look at the journey, right? So you got traffic, same as ecom. You send it to your web page. After the web page, what happens then is they fill out a form. So there's a form submission. But after the form submission, what happens? You don't get the paying customer immediately. They've just filled out the form and expressed their interest that they want to talk to somebody. One of yourself or your sales team actually need to qualify this lead. You need to qualify the lead, determine whether they're the right fit or not, and then after that, you make the sale. So this is especially important because there's an extra 2 to 3 steps after you've generated the lead. Why this is important is because Facebook works off of a feedback loop system, right? So you see here, it's like traffic, conversion event, conversion. It then improves on itself based on the conversion events it sets, right? Because when you run traffic and you run ads and then you get conversions, it learns through the machine learning algorithm that it influences the traffic and the creative that it'll push towards a certain person. This is important because when you go back to the channel, I might just put it up here. When you go back to the difference between ecom and lead generation, you can see the difference in that the purchase is a direct correlation of a feedback loop back to purchases. The only difference with lead gen and ecom is that this is where the feedback loop stops for Meta. It'll keep learning based off of who fills out the form. What Meta does not see is who is qualified and who actually generates into a sale. Why does this matter? Because now Meta is working with broken data. It's going to actually find more and more traffic and leads based off of people that haven't necessarily converted, but purely filled out the form. And this is kind of what I want to illustrate here in terms of this funnel. So you see here, when you generate traffic, there's always going to be a funnel, right? So the top is going to be, let's just say we generate 100 eyeballs, right? And of those, maybe 10 people, like this is your traffic, this is your leads, right? You get 10 leads. They say it's a 10% conversion rate. Meta only sees this because this is the only thing it can actually track, the leads. But of those leads, we might only get in contact with 5 of them, right? So we might actually like talk to or connect 5 of them, so 50%. And of those, we might only have a proposal of 2. And then we might have a sale of 1, right? What Meta does is it looks at this number and says, all right, we spent, $1,000 and we generated 10 leads. So that's $100 cost per lead. And it'll keep finding more and more and more people based on this number here. It'll find more $100 cost per leads and keep iterating and iterating and iterating. And it'll create this persona and this audience and market of people to keep hitting this goal. But the problem is you only sold to 1. Only 1 of those 10 leads that you generated was actually high quality and good enough to actually turn into a sale. So what then happens is, if you leave it and structure your campaigns in the same way that you do your ecom campaigns, where you're letting Meta dictate where all the leads are coming from, the leads that it's generating, the traffic, everything, you will essentially be creating a feedback loop that generates the wrong type of leads. So what is the solution, right? How do we mitigate this? How do we get around this? What we need to do is segment our campaigns in a way that we can control and understand where the leads are coming from, and then manually determine where the money should go based on our qualitative feedback on what is getting a sale, right? So traditionally, a lot of ecom businesses, and these days, like broad targeting is essentially like the new targeting, the ad creative is the variable. A lot of ecom businesses, what they do is they run very similar structures. It's like, one campaign, and you make like a broad ad set, and then you house many different ads underneath it, right? Ad 1, ad 2, ad 3, whatever it is. You need to scrap this idea because the broad targeting will keep finding people that aren't necessarily the right audience. You need to structure your campaigns in a segmented way, what I call a 1-3-3 approach. So that's one campaign, 3 ad sets. So audience 1, 2, and 3, and then 3 ads in each ad set, right? So ad 1, ad 2, etc., etc. And in these ad sets, you want to target the following: 1 broad, 1 interest, and 1 look-alike audience. And this is an email upload or like a list of leads that you've generated in the past. If you haven't got this data, you don't have a database of past leads or anything, or past customers that you can create a lookalike audience from, you can just add another interest. But the reason why we do this is when you run this structure, what's going to happen is you're going to generate leads across the board, right? And these ads are gonna have different cost per leads, and that's okay, right? So when you run this ad, you run $100 a day, you run it for like, 2 weeks to a month, you spent $3,000. Ad set 1 is gonna have, $200 cost per leads, ad set 2 is gonna have $50 cost per leads, ad set 3 is gonna have $1,000 cost per leads. Here's the key thing. Do not make any rash decisions. Do not turn things off. Do not go crazy and make any judgments. What you do is you analyze your funnel and you look at how many leads you generated in total, how many you talked to, how many you sent proposals to, and how many you actually sold. And in the ones you sell, you reverse engineer it and figure out the day that they sold, the ad, the audience, right? And you can utilize this through like a UTM tracking and things like that. But through that qualitative analysis, you would then find out, okay, the ones that made a sale, which ad and audience did they come from? So which audience segment from my broad interest or lookalike audience did they actually generate from, right? So which audience did Meta target to generate the lead that created the sale for me? And then which messaging in the ad resonated with them the most? Once you figure out what actually made the sale, you figure out your cost per acquisition. This is the true metric and number you want to follow. So once you figure out your cost per acquisition, you can then figure out where the cheapest, most profitable customers are actually coming from. So cost per acquisition, okay, cool. Let's just say it's $1,000 here to produce a customer, it's $500 here, and then it's $2,000 for this lookalike audience. And the cost per leads are wildly different. So you see here, the interest targeting is $500 cost per lead, which is a cost per acquisition. So you see here, the interest targeting is $500 cost per acquisition, which is the cheapest. But in the interest targeting, in the cost per lead side of things, it might actually be the most expensive cost per lead. What you want to do is ignore cost per lead and really go hard on cost per acquisition, right? This is your North Star. This is the number that you need to hold yourself accountable to. Because that way, when you figure out what is actually generating you sales in your funnel, you can then remove these and then build upon this one, the interest targeting that is producing the best cost per acquisition. Then you can load up more creatives and scale the budget vertically. So that is actually how you're supposed to run lead generation campaigns, because again, going back to it and to summarizing it, Meta does not see anything beyond this. It does not see the data after it's generated the lead. It only looks at the cost per lead side of things, right? And you need a feedback loop that is accurate. Ecom is very straightforward. The purchase event that the pixel is actually firing on is a direct correlation to the purchases, and thus generating more revenue for your business, right? It's accurate. Lead generation is not accurate. When you generate a cost per lead of $50, that lead might not make you anything. You might actually be losing money on that lead. Most likely you are, because you're not tying it to the money that is actually generated. You need to follow the money, you need to follow cost per acquisition, and the algorithms don't see any of that. So start looking at cost per acquisition, start manually segmenting your lead generation campaigns to follow this structure, and I guarantee you, you'll get way better results from your lead generation. I hope that helps.